again, when I first started the business, I would be in floods of tears if a client decided they wanted to leave, or a member of the team decided that they wanted to leave. But none of it's personal. So remembering that business is business, and sometimes you are just part of a journey for someone.
This is the We Built This Business podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Osullivan. This is the podcast for UK business owners to share their journey, their knowledge, their sacrifices, and their successes. This podcast is sponsored by Team Building Experiences. If you're planning a team building event, away day, or corporate event, then check out team-building-experiences.co.uk and state podcast 15 in the comments to receive 15% off your proposal. So today I'm pleased to have Becky Hopkin on the We Built This Business podcast. Becky is the Managing Director of Digital Gearbox, a PPC agency for ambitious brands. Becky, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Really looking forward to this conversation today, Becky. Can you start by just telling me more about Digital Gearbox?
Sure. So Digital Gearbox, we turned 10 last year.
Congratulations.
And thank you. We actually, well, it's a bit of a long story. I'll try and shorten it down a bit because I don't want to bore everyone. But I joined an agency 11 years ago that was actually going by the name of Indium Online at the time. And we, at that agency, did pay-per-click, but we also did email marketing and affiliate marketing. And it was owned by a lovely lady who some of our listeners might know, called Chloe Thomas. And yeah, I actually followed an old colleague of mine to the agency. And about 3 months into the role, Chloe made the decision we're going to specialize with just the pay-per-click side of things. That was where we were getting the best results for people. That was where our expertise laid. And as a part of that move, she decided we're going to rebrand as Digital Gearbox. And I was fortunate enough to be part of that rebranding exercise. So I do feel like I was there at the birth of Digital Gearbox. And yeah, that all happened 10 years ago. Pay-per-click only, but that covers Google ads, Microsoft ads, and also the paid social side of things as well. So your Meta ads, LinkedIn ads, anything basically where you're paying to advertise online, we're pretty open to doing. So we've done some stuff with Reddit, and we're looking at TikTok at the moment as well.
Really looking forward to getting into obviously how you took over and the progress since then. So at the moment, the size of the agency that you're at, how many employees do you have and what sort of revenue are you up to at the moment?
So there's 8, including myself. And we are just shy of the 500,000 turnover mark. And this year will be the year that we break through that. And yeah, trajectory, hopefully kind of we're shooting to get to the 1 million point by the end of next year. So we're pushing the go hard on the growth button.
Excellent. Wow. So you've recently been named the Agency Hackers Growth Index Top 50. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, so Agency Hackers is a community for digital agencies. And they just launched this initiative to kind of celebrate and recognize the agencies that are growing and doing cool things, basically. And yeah, we were nominated, which was nice. We were recognized as being one of those amongst the community that is doing good things, and we are growing, and we are managing a lot of money for people and giving them some good results. And also what was quite nice, as a part of that recognition, they pointed out how we're giving back to the community in a number of ways. So we're quite big on employing local young talent. That was something else that they liked and went into that accolade.
Brilliant. That sounds great. Yeah, we'll have a look at employees later on. Always a challenge getting good members of staff. With regards to the PPC, obviously, for those not in the know of marketing, that's pay-per-click advertising.
Yes.
I'm assuming Google and Bing are the main channels that are used. Did you say you were looking at TikTok? What about LinkedIn and Instagram? Do you also do the paid ads for those platforms as well?
Yeah, we also do the paid socials. So yeah, we do a lot of Instagram, a lot of Facebook under the Meta umbrella now, and yeah, a lot of LinkedIn ads as well.
And the makeup of the business that you look after, is the majority of the money still, would you say, spent in the search engine or search engine, sorry, or is it kind of more going towards the social platforms?
Good question. It's a lot of our media spend still goes towards the search engines, and a lot of that goes onto the Google being the number one search engine. But a lot of people are recognizing the benefits of Microsoft Ads now, lower cost per clicks. It doesn't take a whole lot of budget, but we do manage a lot of activity across Meta, so Facebook and Instagram as well. So I'd say probably the split is around the 70-30 mark on the search versus paid social. There's some companies that do invest a lot in the paid social side of things now, and they get better results on that than they do on the Google side of things. So it is really business dependent.
I see. I see. I guess, yeah, it depends on where that business is and where their customers are essentially
Exactly.
as to where the budget is.
Yeah, it also depends on their competitive marketplace as well. If they've got a lot of competition that they're up against on Google, then sometimes just doing something different and being on a different platform can work really well for them. So
Yeah, makes sense. One thing that I've noticed a lot of people are starting to look at more is doing conferences and talking at conferences. I saw the other week that you were at Marketing Camp, which is
Mhm.
a new marketing conference in Oxfordshire. How did the talk go?
Yeah, it went well. It went well. I was talking about meta ads actually, so I wasn't talking. I'm very accustomed to doing talks about the Google side of things. So it was actually a first that I was invited to do one on the meta side of things. So yeah, it was nice to test that on a local audience, and it was well received, and it was a really good event. So I'm excited to hear that they're doing it again next year.
And have you done any other talks elsewhere?
I have. So 2 years ago, I was invited to Amsterdam and Brussels to talk at the Friends of Search conference. So that was a nice opportunity. That was a much larger industry conference, and yeah, I was off on the Eurostar. I felt like a little rock star for a few days, touring, touring around. But that was really cool. And yeah, I've spoken at Brighton FCO, so the kind of fringe that they do for the search advertising show there. I spoke there a couple of years ago as well. And yeah, a lot of local networking places where they have little spotlights. I've done a lot of those gigs as well.
And do you find that you get much return from those conferences, or is it a bit, hit and miss, I suppose?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the bigger ones I've done have kind of been amongst other agencies and for other agencies. So it's not generally people that we are selling to. It's more knowledge sharing within our community. So I've not got business directly off the back of those ones. Obviously, Marketing Camp was last week, so we'll see. We'll see if that one leads to anything. That was a slightly different market, but I do think they're very important for highlighting kind of thought leadership from our team. I do think they contribute. People do notice that you are speaking at those things. Whether anyone's gone, I'm going to speak to Becky today because she's spoken at that conference. I don't know. I've not tracked that, but I firmly believe it should be part of an agency strategy.
You talked earlier about Digital Gearbox rebranding as a PPC agent, and you were part of that rebrand. At the time, you were employee, is that correct?
Yes, I was a I was marketing manager by that point. Was my official title.
And so how did the transition happen essentially from marketing manager to managing director?
So it was a process over a couple of years. So when I joined, Chloe always made it fairly clear that her intention was to sell the business onto the employees at some point, which was quite an exciting prospect. I'd come from a large corporate company where I was never going to be the owner of that big company. And I was very much at the bottom of the chain. So going from that to a small agency where I could be one day an owner was quite an exciting prospect. And she, um, uh, shortly after the rebrand, she actually moved down to Cornwall, where she's from, to focus her efforts and time on her other brands that she has. So she's an e-commerce speaker. She runs a podcast. She's got books, and she was spending 4 days a week on that business and 1 day a week on Digital Gearbox. And as a part of that move, I became more and more involved in kind of the operations of the business. And as time went on, I kind of progressed to head of client services. And I was, yeah, essentially responsible for making sure that our clients were getting the services that they'd paid for. So the delivery side of things was all on me. And yeah, there was one day where Chloe pulled me aside and she was like, "I'm ready to sell the business. Are you interested in buying the business? If not, then she was going to put it on hold for another year and decide what to do with it." So it was kind of a, do you want it now or do we talk about it in a year? And because I'd kind of, it's quite funny thinking back because at the time I thought I was doing a lot of running the business. And I was like, oh yeah, why not just go for it? I'm doing all this work, but it's not my baby, even though it almost felt like my baby. So I thought, I looked at the numbers, they seemed reasonable. I was all, I was at that kind of junction where I was like, I either do this now or I leave and take a different path. I go find another role somewhere to step up because I was ready to do something different. And yeah, I opted to buy the agency from her, which yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. I'm very grateful that I kind of got to go into business ownership that way. I know probably most of your guests, they're the ones that have come up with the company from day dot. So I almost, there's at times where I feel a little bit of what's the word? Um, I feel I don't feel like a true entrepreneur because I've never set up a business. However, I've gone through such a journey with building and growing a business since then. I need to realize that I've done a lot. And whilst I didn't incorporate the business on day one, it's still been my baby, which I've been growing. And there's a lot of, yeah, I have built this business to what it is now, to link it back to your podcast title.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I think is overlooked is you don't have to set the actual business up. You know, most businesses get bought at some stage and they get taken on and they're at that level at that stage, and then the entrepreneur that then takes them on then grows them to the new version of themselves. I've actually found we haven't done an actual acquisition ourselves, but we are looking into it where it's a lot easier to acquire an existing business than it is to start from scratch. So it's actually a more prudent and easier methodology that you already know the business, you've got a good understanding of what goes on to take it on, and then grow it from there. So I think it's a really good way of getting into business ownership, and probably one that isn't looked at enough, especially in this country. So when you took the business on, what was more challenging than you first thought?
All the things that weren't delivery. So the things that you absolutely take for granted as an employee. Like I I'm good with numbers, but the whole finance side of running a business, VAT returns, all the accounting stuff, I had kind of really no idea that there were quarterly VAT returns. going on. It sounds obvious now, but I just had no idea. You don't think about it. I had no idea really about suppliers or the challenges of keeping people paying to payment terms and all that kind of the side of the business. That was the first thing that I was really trying to get my head around. And one of the first things I did, actually, I'm not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to say it was a good thing, was we used to have a bookkeeper. And actually, I took that over just so I could really understand what was going out of the business, what was coming in. And whilst I had an accountant, it really helped me just start looking at the numbers behind the business and getting my head around that. But yeah, working with an accountant was a whole new thing. I kind of inherited one. He was based down in Cornwall that I never saw, and it didn't work. So that was one of the biggest things I did to begin with, was find a local accountant to work with and to kind of help me understand all the joys of tax and VAT and all that lovely stuff that business owners really
It's
enjoy.
the one of the most overlooked parts, isn't it? It's all the boring back end financials that you just want to be given a kind of a monthly report that tells you where you're up to every month. That's the ideal, but you have to get to a level that the accounts are accurate and you know what's going in and out. I think is a very good thing to do when you've just taken over a business, to almost look at that bookkeeping angle and everything that's going in the business in and out. You can then review, and also what's going on, because there's a hell of a lot that goes on sometimes, that especially with direct debits that have just been going out for years, that you suddenly realize you're not even using that software anymore. Managing people, so I'm just thinking of it from a, you're already in the business, so you're already managing a team essentially, and then suddenly you're the owner. How was that transition for you?
It was initially a very smooth transition because there was only three of us. And as I said, I was kind of the head of delivery anyway, so they were reporting to me. I was managing them already. The immediate challenge that came up was, I think, 3 months after buying the business, I found out I was pregnant. And also within a month after me finding out I was pregnant, the two staff that I had, they didn't know I was pregnant, but the two of them decided that they wanted to move on. So it was going to just be me who was pregnant and no one else. So very quickly,
Wow. Yeah.
I had to think like a managing director and like an owner about what resource I actually needed, and to do a very small, albeit, but a restructuring of sorts to factor in the fact that I would not be there as owner for a couple of weeks, essentially.
That is quite a lot to take on within a
It
3-month
was.
period.
It was.
Um, I mean, the team, inheriting the team is, one of the joys of taking over a business, so as opposed to starting one. So, that must have been quite a stressful period, I imagine, to suddenly have that, as well as, the happy news,
Yes.
obviously, of being pregnant. But I guess, like everything, life happens, and nothing happens when it's the
No.
perfect time. Um, so obviously you've now got to a point where you had to recruit
Mhm.
new people. Um, what was the first person you hired? Did you just replace the two that had left, or
No.
did you look at a different
I went for
angle?
a different angle. So at the time, I had kind of two exec levels, and I knew I needed someone a little bit more senior and experienced that was going to be able to work with me quite closely, and also to be able to look after things whilst I wasn't there. Um, so I went for a manager level, just one person at the time, who I found someone who came from London and wanted to escape the London bustle and come work in sunny Bicester. Um, and yeah, it worked at the time. It was very quickly, once I found out the news I was pregnant, my my goals for the business changed very much to let's survive year one. So I wasn't the most ambitious, but I was realistic. I was like, let's just figure out what running a business is like and keep the business going. Because yeah, businesses fail. I'm very aware of that, and there was a new strategy in place. So yeah, it was quite a simple brief to the lovely chap I hired, and he did a great job. I mean, I worked until my induction date, so he didn't. I didn't have a lovely maternity leave, prepping for the baby. I carried on working. I was fortunate enough that I was well enough to do, and I didn't want to sit around and wait, so I just kept working. When my daughter was born, I had a relatively short time off. It was both. It was necessary that did carry on because I didn't teach that person how to do everything. I didn't teach them the finance side of things. I had to keep looking after that. But we weren't of a size at the time where that took too much time. So, and obviously one of the absolute blessings of being a business owner was that I could work when I wanted to and around a baby. So, whilst it was a challenge, one of the best things about becoming a business owner has been able to shape my hours around my family. And whilst it's not always easy, I have a lot of gratitude for having that opportunity.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, really hats off to you. I mean, that is, like you said, there is always, ways of making it
Mm-hmm.
work. Yeah, navigating, owning a business,
Mm-hmm.
when it isn't quite strong enough to have someone come in instead
Yeah.
when you're out of the business for a period of time is I think one of the hardest things about being a small business
Mm-hmm.
owner, because when you're part of an organization, you do just take it for granted that, well, I'm just going on maternity
Mm-hmm.
leave now,
Yeah.
and I'll see you in a period of time, and unfortunately the business needs to be there when you get
Yeah.
back, and that is very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
One of your successes that we spoke about before was when you had a second child, you were able to take maternity leave. So you've obviously built the business up to be a bigger version of what it was. What what did you learn from having your first child that meant that by the time you had a second child, you were able to take that maternity leave?
I'd learned what I could offload to the team versus what I could pull in as external resource. So I had different suppliers that could do more with the accounting side of things, like obviously the bookkeeping I'd already got rid of. I'd, I'd figured out the numbers. I trusted someone else to look after that. I had trained someone on my team up to handle the invoicing side of things, so I didn't have to worry about that. I had stepped out of day-to-day account management. That was a real big difference, actually. First time around with just me and one other, I was still heavily involved with client delivery. And one of the scariest parts of the first time round was telling clients that I was pregnant because I didn't want them to panic and go, oh, she's not going to be managing my account. My account's going to stop working. No one's going to be looking after it. That was never the case because I had the other chap there to look after it. But this time round, I wasn't their day-to-day contact. Me disappearing really had no impact on any of our clients. So getting out of the day-to-day operations was the biggest shift that allowed me to take that time off. And yeah, that kind of, I had quite a big gap to get to that point from the first time. So there's a 4.5 year age gap between my girls. So I was able to bring in the team and always getting out of working in the business was kind of my immediate goal after, well, as I started to take on more team members, because that's what you need to do to grow it. You need to have someone working on the business. That's what every good business coach tells you. It's what I've seen other successful businesses do. So yeah, just getting to that point made all the difference second time round.
Yeah, I think that's a true sign of an entrepreneur, essentially, when you're able to vision that you can no longer be in the business and you have to build the team to make it possible for you to work on the business the vast majority of the time, if not all the time. And that's when the business can live without you. And once you've got to that point, life, I wouldn't say becomes easier because you've got a
No.
team to look after, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier, I guess.
It's an interesting chat because I've got to this point now where I'm still my second daughter's only one, so I'm still not working traditional full time Monday to Friday 9 till 5. I'm actually only in the office 3 days a week, 3 mornings a week, in fact. But I have that need. I still want to work in the business. Like I still want to keep up to date with all the trends. I still want to play around with accounts. So it's and almost when I go and do these talks at conferences, I want to have my own experience with doing these things to add some kind of real value to those talks. So it's an interesting dilemma because I still want that experience and I still want to know everything, but actually focusing a lot of my time working on the business, it's quite challenging to find the time to do both. So it's an interesting dilemma as you get into that space.
Yeah, I guess it's being like on the tools enough so that you
Mm.
understand it and pushing the boundaries on what's possible and how to push the business forward
Yeah, and our industry
at the same
changes
time
so
as
fast. So when I was on my maternity leave, like Google Ads, so much changed in just a few months. Like AI, the tools of the AI really stepped up a gear. And I remember kind of before I went on my maternity leave, we were like, oh, we don't trust it. It doesn't work as well. And by the time I came back, it was like, oh, we trust it now and it performs better. And it was such a big shift because I hadn't been there to see kind of have that evidence. And I was like, I said to the team, I was like, is it really better? Have we really tested it? And they like showed me all the experiments, all the evidence to show me that. But because it was such a big change, it was a lot to get my head around. And yeah, I now spend a lot of time reading things and talking to the team and getting their kind of feedback on what is working, to try and keep up to date with all these things that change.
so the AI question is one that comes up regularly here essentially. So Google AdWords and Bing as its Microsoft version, they've introduced an AI that effectively bids for you. How I mean, my concept behind it is we're basically giving Google money to make choices on how we bid, and I'm like, that just sounds crazy because you're like, well, of course they're going to spend it, but so you're saying it's actually better now than the manual cost per click setting that used to be the common way of doing it.
It it often is. It depends is always the lovely fun answer, but it depends on the data you're feeding Google with. That's where it it makes a difference of if it works or not. If you have a lot of conversion data going into Google to tell it what is working, to tell it how much you're making, and then you can give Google the strict instructions, I want it to perform to this level, it generally will perform better with the AI, providing it's got enough data food to make these decisions with. If you don't have enough data going into Google, if you're a new business and you haven't got that conversion data, that's when the AI fails. So yeah, it really depends. And I would also say like people become too reliant on the AI, and sometimes if the data starts failing, they don't adjust the targets to kind of accommodate the lack of data that's going in or the fluctuations in performance. So it still very much requires manual intervention to work, which I'm pleased about because when I heard that AI was outperforming some of the manual stuff, I was like, oh no, my agency, we're going to be overtaken by the robot. It absolutely, it needs a human managing it to work effectively. But generally, like I say, as long as you're set up to track things and you're giving Google the data, we're finding that it does outperform the manual side of things now. But I mean, one of the things we spend a lot of time doing is running experiments on that very thing and checking in to see is it still the best strategy for that campaign. Um, and sometimes switching back to manual is the way to go. Like I say, if the performance suddenly dips for a reason and it's not getting the amount of conversions it was getting, sometimes a switch back to manual will help lift it up again. So yeah, it's a fun new world we're dealing in with the AI.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of I don't understand it, and that's the problem. You know, you're always scared of things you don't understand, aren't you? And
Yeah.
it's so new still that I think, you know, give it another year, it's going to just keep advancing, and it's going to revolutionize pretty much everything that we do. We're just probably in the infinite stage at the moment. Just changing topics slightly. So, when you first recruited an experienced person, did you then continue that strategy where of recruiting experienced people, or did you change tact once you were back in the business?
I changed tact. It was interesting. So the lovely chap who came in whilst I was on my first, uh, I don't like to call it maternity leave because there was no leave, but my first child when I got him, um, he was great, but not long after I came back, he decided that agency life wasn't for him. So yeah, it was an interesting experience, and then the the stars aligned, and at that point one of the guys who had left prior to maternity leave, he decided he wanted to come back, so I had him come back. So I had someone with a little bit of experience, but um was someone that was also a newbie when he started, so it's a little complex there. But anyway, with regards to hiring experienced people, it's funny because we've got our way of managing and optimizing accounts. And the interesting thing about bringing in people with experience in our industry is that they've got their way of managing and optimizing accounts. And there is no infinite right way of doing it, but we have our processes that the team follow and we get results from that. To have someone else come in and do it their way almost creates a bit of a conflict, which makes it a little bit difficult to have consistency across our accounts. So we've always found it easier to bring kind of young, enthusiastic talent in and just train them up. The things that we look for in our hiring process, number one is attitude and enthusiasm, and an ability to kind of get their head around the fact, kind of get their head around the numbers, and also have a kind of creative approach to marketing. So they don't have to have done any PPC. We've got processes and a really good induction program that gets people trained up really quickly, that can get them doing things the Digital Gearbox way within a couple of months. So yeah, we've actually flipped back to that. And about 5 years ago, we went kind of a step beyond that and started bringing in even younger people via apprenticeships. Yeah, that's been a kind of slightly different way of doing it because they're getting external training alongside our training. But we found it firstly very rewarding to have given such kind of young, enthusiastic people an opportunity, but also they're getting some external knowledge that they can bring into the team to kind of support on the other side of the marketing elements. So a lot of these people are doing digital marketing qualifications alongside as a part of their apprenticeship, sorry. So they're understanding kind of the web development side a little bit, they're understanding the SEO side as well as the PPC side of things. So that's been a nice addition to our kind of hiring strategy. But yeah, we've not gone for the experienced person. We were going to do it, and the person that came in didn't like the way we did things, so within a couple of days they left. So it's just not worked out that way, and I'm still quite confident in the kind of training people up route.
Excellent. I mean, I guess it's also a culture thing, isn't it? Like, you've built a really good culture that, um, you know, people have been brought in. Some of them through an apprenticeship have, you know, learned the, like you said, the digital gearbox way. And sometimes if you then look to bring people externally who have experience. They want to put their own spin on things and kind of change things up, which can cause problems in the team. I imagine one of the things with managing a team is autonomy. Obviously, we've talked about giving people more responsibility, especially to allow you to work on the business. How have you found providing that autonomy to people? Has it caused many problems?
It has and it hasn't. I'm a firm believer in giving people autonomy to learn. Like you learn through making mistakes, and we have very robust systems so that any mistakes are caught before they're actually implemented to cause any problems. So we have kind of more senior people checking things, spreadsheets before it goes into accounts. But at the same time, we're especially with younger team members, sometimes too much autonomy can lead to kind of a lot of time wasting, them taking 5 hours on something that should have only taken one. And that became a bigger problem kind of during the lockdown times when we weren't all in an office together and you didn't know how much time something was taking someone without kind of probing. So yeah, it's an ongoing challenge, in all honesty. I still think it's the way to go, and I've seen people grow through giving them that autonomy and they learn. But there's always instances where I'm like, oh, have I given them too much free reign to spend as long as they want on something, because it is time wasted sometimes.
It's a really tough balance, isn't it? Because yeah, like you said, you want them to grow, you
Mm.
want them to learn, you want them to fail,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you don't want them to fail all the time,
No,
and they need to be able to be accountable and not spend hours and hours on something that should take an hour, because that's how suddenly the business that was profitable suddenly becomes less profitable
exactly.
because they're not being as
Yeah.
productive. So you talked about working from home there. Obviously, we've been through a global pandemic. Are y are you all remote, or do you have an office? How does it work at Digital
We
Gearbox?
have an office. And actually that was a big question mark on should we have an office. So we were in a slightly grotty office, but we're very friendly co-tenants. Prior to the pandemic, we had a room that we affectionately called the pigeon room because it was a listed building and they couldn't clean the windows and the pigeon poo was just all over it. But yeah, obviously we had to go remote for a period during COVID times, as we all did, and there was a feeling of, do we need an office because what we do can be done anywhere. Um, and I pondered upon it, and I opted in the end that we do need an office, especially because where we do have a younger team and the autonomy thing, we do need to be in the same place to learn from one another, and to share, just to more easily share knowledge. So I decided that we did need an office, and I also decided that we needed a nicer office. Again, kind of being within my own four walls. As much as I love my house, you kind of start fantasizing about other places you could be. And we were very fortunate at the time where we could go back. There was a nice brand new office that was available that I decided to go for, because whilst COVID was a difficult time, one of the benefits of it for us as an agency, as a digital agency, was that a lot of businesses were going online. So we actually, despite having an initial downturn because of a number of our clients were in the hospitality industry, after a year we actually started to benefit from the situation where more people had gone online. So we did grow during the period, and we had outgrown the older office anyway, and I firmly wanted to grow the team further, so we needed a place that we could grow into. So we have an office. We've not moved. We've been here for 4 years, and the team, they some of the team work from home 4 days a week. Most of them are in the office 4 days a week. So it kind of splits on people's roles and how much they want to be. But generally, I find the younger ones do want to be in the office. They kind of like the atmosphere of being in office. They want to learn from others, so it works quite well for us to still have that central hub.
Like a hybrid approach,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean my thought process is essentially when you're learning in your career, especially at the beginning, you need to learn from others. And one of the big downsides for me is if you've got everyone working from home and they can't hear the conversations or just the chit chat that goes on, they're not picking up that kind of external knowledge that they would overhear, or just by being in presence of more senior people, they grow as a person as well. So it is a challenge. Have you had any issues trying to get people back into the office, or is it not something that's a major issue?
Um, we did initially. I think there was, well, actually, initially we didn't because we had the shiny new office. But as we employed new people, it was kind of the new people that were looking for hybrids or working from home. So it was kind of in the recruiting stage, I found it more challenging that people wanted, like the first question from a lot of people was, can I work from home? Or how much can I work from home? Um, so yeah, it was definitely a challenge slightly later on, but I think now people understand the benefits they do get from being in the office. So when they do work from home, it's more because they want that quiet focus time, and they arrange their weeks accordingly, that they're kind of doing maybe a lot of client meetings when they're home, when they're not going to be speaking to other people anyway. And then they're in the office when they're in a kind of a creative space where they can collaborate together more.
Yeah, and obviously being in a creative industry as well, you are speaking to people regularly. Looking at the kind of mental pressures of owning a business, how do you kind of cope with the pressure? Do you have any coping mechanisms that you could kind of pass on to others?
Um, I think holidays are very important. So, actually, as a part of my path to baby number two, I had two-week holidays each year to really practice me not being around and seeing how that went. And I know so many business owners who are like, I haven't got time for holidays, or I can't exit the business. For, for 2 weeks, your business should be able to survive without you. And it's so important to for your mental health to be able to shut off. And actually, my other tip, well, for me, I find that if I go to a nice quiet beach somewhere, my mind will still race with business stuff. For me, I like to go skiing somewhere where I'm gonna not be thinking about work, or I go to busy theme parks where I'm distracted by roller coasters and stuff. So I go for very busy holidays, which sounds slightly counteractive because I'm exhausted still when I come back. But mentally, I don't have time to think about work because I'm distracted by not falling down a mountain or not falling off a roller coaster. So also for me, I guess that factors in that I've got kids. I can't really lounge around on a sunbed either. So there's double reasons for that. But yeah, taking holiday is important. Um, taking I find exercise important. So whether that's a walk, whether that's going for a run, I always find if I'm getting stressed with work, if I just go for a walk, step away from the situation, fresh air's really good for you, endorphins are really good for you, and you always feel better. Not making snapped decisions or responses, which I know sometimes you've got to reply quickly to things, but I've always found I respond to situations better if I've initially reacted badly or had a negative thought around whether a client said something or a member of the team, taking the time to digest it and think about why they're saying that is always really beneficial to me. And try not to take things personally. I remember, again, when I first started the business, I would be in floods of tears if a client decided they wanted to leave, or a member of the team decided that they wanted to leave. but none of it's personal. So remembering that business is business and people have their different objectives, and it's fine. There are other people who will want to work for you or work with you. And sometimes you are just part of a journey for someone, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Really good advice. And yeah, it's that, like you said, that business aspect of trying to remember that, it's very, very personal to you because it's your business, isn't it? But it is a business, and people come and people go, and it's I think it definitely helps with experience as well. Is in like the more it happens, the more I remember the first person that handed their notice in with us, and I was kind of like, what have we
Yeah.
done? Like, why would they want to leave
Yeah. Why
us?
don't you love me?
um exactly. But you get used to it, and it
Yeah.
happens. You know that people are going to grow and move to different industries or different positions
Yeah.
in other
And
firms.
I like now when people do leave and I see where they go and how they flourish, I think about how I've contributed to that, and it's just reshaping that you are just there to help people progress, and if it's for a short time, it's for a short time. If it's for a long time, that's wonderful. Um, but yeah, it's not it's not always bad news.
So obviously you're very busy. You're a business owner. You're juggling two young children as well. How how do you manage to fit it all in?
um, that is a good question. Definitely time blocking for me. So like I say, I have my free mornings in the office, which are my sacred hours of getting a lot of stuff done. But being flexible as well, like realistically, as a business owner, you don't switch off except for when you're on a roller coaster or up a mountain. I'm okay with the fact that occasionally I might have to do some work in an evening after the girls have gone to the bed, but always thinking back to being grateful for the fact that I have the opportunity to work my own hours. And I think just practicing that gratitude that I have the flexibility helps me stay sane, and it allows me to fit everything in. But delegating is a big thing. So I do I'm very precious with my time. I do believe in working with suppliers that can help fill in the gaps. We don't outsource any of our campaign management or anything like that, but I do outsource elements of accounting, HR, that side of running the business. So finding trusted partners that can help spread the weight of a business, because sometimes it's not worth your time and being stressed to try and do everything when you can pay someone else to help do it better for you and take away that stress.
Definitely. And outsourcing is something that we do a lot in as well. I mean, is it something that you wish you kind of did more of?
Yes and no. It's finding the right people, I think, and I like there's been people who we've had successful outsourcing with, and there's people where it's been less successful. So it's one of those. I think as long as you feel that you're getting a better service than what you could do yourself, then absolutely. But sometimes you have to try someone to see if it works that way, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't, unfortunately. And that might just be that
Yeah,
it wasn't the right partner. That's what I always struggle to. I think I've outsourced a few things, it hasn't worked, and then I've not outsourced it again, but it might have just been that it wasn't the right partner for me.
yeah. We've had a look at outsourcing abroad for a few things, but yeah, it hasn't always worked out essentially. So it is like you said, finding the right partner, and it's again you have to be able to fail a little bit. Some are going to work, some aren't going to work. So Digital Gearbox, it's grown year on year since you took over. That is an incredible achievement. How do you see the future going now? So you're looking at doubling the revenue. You tell us more about your plans?
I can. So we've been a lot of the growth we've enjoyed. has been through referrals, and we've actually been quite passive with our own marketing, which is always ironic when you're a marketing agency, the old cobbler's shoes. Um, but we are trying to get out there a lot more. And I mean, for me, that that's a challenge with my time and my commitments. But I have Michael, our sales and marketing manager, who goes out a lot networking. So networking has been pivotal to our initial growth, but it is just time intensive. So having someone else out there that can do that for me, and actually some of the other team members want to get out and network as well. So networking is part of our plans. Speaking at more conferences and on more podcasts, just reminding people of who we are, what we do is a big thing, because we've got some amazing results for our clients, and we just don't shout about it enough. So getting the team to put together case studies about what we're achieving for people, that's part of that strategy. We've been putting a load on our website recently, so anyone who's listening and wants to see, have a look. But just telling people how good we are. We've been recognized by Google again, as an awarded premier partner status. So that means we're in the top 3% of advertisers in the country, recognized by Google. So we kind of have people telling us we're good. We know we're good. We just need to amplify that, basically, and also ask more people for referrals. So like I said, we've been quite passive. People have recommended us and referred us on, but actually asking people to do that a bit more. It's always a bit awkward, isn't it? Can you tell your mates about us? But sometimes people just don't realize that you're actually looking for more business. So being a little bit more proactive that way, and also potentially dabbling in our own pay-per-click. It's a very, again, it sounds silly that a pay-per-click agency can't use pay-per-click to get leads, but it's because they're all doing it, and it's really hard, and it's super competitive and expensive. But we have some ideas about what we can do to try and cut through the clutter there, so we might try a bit of that as well. But just being more active and proactive is kind of the key around our growth plans, rather than enjoying kind of growth through passive referrals.
Excellent. Well, it sounds really. I mean, you're building a fantastic business, and yeah, like you said, marketing, ironically, is as a marketing business, you're so busy marketing everyone else all day that sometimes you forget you have to also market yourself as much. If you, especially if you want to grow. So really looking forward to seeing, and I always kind of keep up to date with what you guys are doing on LinkedIn as well. Um, what advice? I like to ask this question. What advice would you give to someone trying to start a business in 2024?
I think kind of finding the right partners to work with is critical. So I would get out to some local networking things before I started a business, to find some people that you can trust and that you click with, that can help support you on that journey. I think finding a good accountant is pivotal. I think um, finding people that will help you find your target customers. So whether that's marketing partners or just natural referrers or businesses that you have synergy with, that's the easiest way to grow a business is referrals. Like I said, that's where we've enjoyed our growth. So if you can have someone help you get those referrals, just having those relationships that you can rely on is key, I think, to success. So go to local network, and don't just go to one group, because there's so many out there. Find kind of people like you that are working with customers like the kind of customers that you want, and pick their brains, because they will people I love speaking to other business owners and helping other business owners in any way I can. And I think there's, even with your competitors, you can share kind of war stories. You can give each other advice on what not to try. So don't dismiss your competitors as well, because quite often they'll be quite happy to help you, as long as you're not going to steal all their ideas and go out there and burn bridges. But yeah, other business owners generally want to help other business owners. A friendly bunch generally. So seek help and you will get it.
Really good advice, yeah. Especially if you're new to the industry or new to the area. Anyone that you can just, like you say, pick their brains for 5-10 minutes can make a huge difference when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
Digital Gearbox, where can people find more information about you, Becky, about yourself and also the business?
So it's our website. There's digitalgearbox.co.uk. And we are on most of the socials, particularly LinkedIn, Instagram, and also TikTok, because we are a young team, and you will find our young team doing TikToky things on TikTok. And for me, I am very active on LinkedIn, so do connect with me on LinkedIn and send me any questions you have that way.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Becky. That was a really, really interesting piece there. We've gone through the whole journey from literally taking over the business all the way through to today. Really exciting what you've got planned for the future, and I look forward to kind of seeing how that maps out. So that was another episode of We Built This Business, and we'll be back next week. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please click follow on your podcast platform. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel.